Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor, as always, to rise to speak this evening about Bill C-12. Obviously, we've had the debate over the course of the day. It's a very simple and clear bill whose goal is to correct a clear error that has an implication of profound injustice towards Canada's seniors, especially the poorest of them.
I think I have a half an hour, 20 minutes of speaking time, and I don't plan to use it. This is at the end of a long day. It's very clear where we all stand. This bill should pass. I'd like to, of course, and it's very rare, by the way, I voted earlier today for closure. I think in the whole time I've been a member of Parliament, which is astonishingly and a huge honor, coming on to being 11 years. In that whole time, I think I've only voted for closure one other time. It offends me to close debate almost every time, but seniors have been waiting too long for a simple error to be repaired, and I want to see the bill pass as quickly as possible. But I wanted to look at this from a broader perspective and raise something about, and it comes in some ways it comes from the comments immediately before mine from the Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot, but from others as well. We're here to fix a mistake, something that should have never happened. The seniors who applied for COVID relief, in many cases, were assured it wouldn't affect their guaranteed income supplement. There was bad advice given to many people, as has happened before on other aspects of COVID relief. But seniors were shocked to find that their guaranteed income supplement had been clawed back. But to fix a mistake, they have to bring another bill to Parliament. Think of how many times this has happened. The member for Battle River Crowfoot mentioned 3 times to fix the CEBA. But think about what happened when we found that there were other unintended mistakes that occurred under COVID relief. One that is still hanging over us was the change to the COVID response benefit, which in the summer, when it looked as though we were coming out of the pandemic and there was tremendous pressure that we weren't getting people back to work because their COVID benefits made it easier for them to stay home than go back to work. I think we've all heard that narrative. I don't buy into it, by the way. We've all heard that narrative. It was hard to get people to come back to work. So the CRB was reduced from $500 a month to $300 a month. Oh, but now it's clear. We're not on our way out of the COVID experience. We still have businesses closing. We still have public health orders, and they've gone on. They may be about to be lifted, but the decision that was made in July doesn't look so very good in February. So much time that people have been struggling to hang on at $300 a month. Now, again, to fix this simple mistake, an entire new piece of legislation is required, and we have to come back to Parliament. Think about another thing that was promised by the Liberal government in 2020. And that, of course, is the Canada Disability Benefit. It's much needed. We know that the poorest in this country, as a community, if you look at people with disabilities, that is going to be the community, the differently abled community that struggles the most with poverty. The Canada Disability Benefit is long overdue. It was promised in 2020. It was promised again in the Liberal platform in 2021. And I'm sure they intend to get to it. I honestly do. I'm not suggesting any degree of skepticism on my part. I think the ministry generally wants to bring forward the legislation. But here we are, and people are poor, and they're still struggling with a society that's struggling with pandemic, and they're still living with being differently abled in a society that doesn't accommodate. We passed legislation for a barrier-free society. We're not there yet. So again, it needs legislation. I think we can make the case after 2 years in pandemic that what we discovered through COVID were depths of inequality that many of us hadn't looked at. I mean, I think a lot of us who are arguing all the time for addressing poverty have looked at it, but we've been very, I don't know, I hate to use the word smug, but Canadians who are living above the poverty line have a hard time imagining how hard it is for our fellow citizens who are homeless, dealing with addictions, unable, even with two people in the same family working, to find a place to live. That was one of the things that struck me of COVID-related stories, of the spread of COVID. Now, this was a story from 2 years ago in Ottawa at one of the homeless shelters. And the workers and supervisors wondered how COVID had come to this particular homeless shelter, only to discover that two of their residents, regular, this is their address, this is where they live, were workers at long-term care homes. They went to work at long-term care homes and they brought COVID back to the homeless shelter. So working people, working hard jobs, frontline workers that we needed so desperately, got infected with COVID and brought it to a homeless shelter. Now, if we don't recognize from all these various stories that we do not have a social safety net that works, our predecessors in this place, in another minority parliament in the late 1960s, when Lester B. Pearson was the prime minister in a minority Liberal government, and the extraordinary people who once were the NDP, and I start apologizing to my friends in the NDP now, it's a shadow of its former self, the giants of social justice, Tommy Douglas and David Lewis, managed to use their minority position to push for what was needed. We had our whole healthcare system put in place in the late 1960s. We had the Canada Pension Plan put in place in the late 1960s. We had unemployment insurance and student loans without interest payments, all in that period. I describe it in ways that might make you think the music of Camelot is about to swell in the background. But we had that once. And here we are in a minority parliament again. Let's be creative. I ask my friends across the party lines that this is a moment to point out the inefficiencies of the failure to eradicate poverty when we have the chance. This is the time to accept, and I'm very proud of the fact that the Green Party of Canada has been the first party in this country to advocate for guaranteed livable income, but there are many more of us now. Obviously, the New Democrats have been advocating for it strongly, and many backbenchers in the Liberal Party are advocating for guaranteed livable income. So are prominent conservatives like former Senator Hugh Segal, whose brilliant book, which was just wonderful, which was Bootstraps Need Boots. You can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps if you're shoeless. This is an important moment for us to think about the ways in which the way we take on these problems are massively inefficient. Each mistake made, and I think they're not calculated to make the poor poorer, but they have that effect. Each mistake, each piece of legislation, each failure to get the right decimal number can't be fixed by a simple regulation, a wave of the wand from the minister. Bill after bill has to come back to this place. Let's fix it once and for all. Let's say, as we debate Bill C-12, we're going to pass this one quickly, but we're not going to give up on casting a light on what is unacceptable in this country. Poverty is unacceptable in this country. Poverty in Indigenous communities, poverty in any community. We're a wealthy country, and we have study after study after study. And the All-Party Poverty Caucus has been holding hearings on this for as long as I've been in this place. Studies that prove our society will be better. It's not about charity. The health, the resilience, the economic strength of our country will be fortified when we have eliminated poverty and every Canadian has a roof over their head, has access, while we're thinking of it, pharmacare, is able to live in dignity. And then this place won't be bogged down in a pandemic with over and over again realizing, oh, we've got a gap there. Uh-oh, gap over there. Oh, more gaps, more legislation is needed. Let's be brave. Let's be bold. Let's think like earlier generations of parliamentarians did. And let's think fully about the full range of programs that seniors need. Affordable housing for every Canadian. Long-term care that's not for profit. Let's think about what we can do for housing to ensure that seniors don't have to leave their own home, but perhaps have creative solutions to make sure they can stay at home, where we know the costs for a senior of living in their own home are far less than if they end up in hospital. I could go on, Madam Speaker, but the hour is late, and I promised myself that I would not use all my available time because all of us are of one, mind in this place. This bill should pass. Our only difference of opinion is how fast. I'm on the side of as fast as possible. That's the only difference in this place tonight. While we're thinking about what we need to do for each other, for our parents, and guess what? I'm now a senior, so I'm in the boat of the 67-year-olds. But boy, am I lucky to have such a good job, such a rewarding job. I think we are paid too much as MPs. I think when you look at the people who do social work and frontline healthcare work, they don't earn enough, and we may earn too much. But that's a conversation for another day. I'm honored to have this job. I want to be of service, and I ask all my colleagues who agree, let's get rid of poverty altogether, not piecemeal Band-Aid programs. Let's do the decent thing. Let's show the world we are committed to social justice, equality, anti-racism, fairness, and above all, democracy. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank my friend for her commitment, her sincerity, and her passion. I think she did present us with kind of a wish list for a world without scarcity, which I would say just quite honestly is not the world we live in, and that's a function of the reality of the human condition, not of anything else. And she and I both hope for a world in which scarcity does not exist. But in the world which we live in, we have to face trade-offs. And it seems to me that policymaking is about those trade-offs. So the one can't realistically simply say we want to do spend more here and spend more here and spend more here without asking the question, where does it all come from? I mean, we're in a situation where in the midst of this pandemic alone, the government has run up a deficit that has created a national debt of over $1 trillion in this country. And that I think about my kids, I think about the cost they'll have to pay, and I just think that has to come from somewhere. I would like to work with the member and other members on the issues she talked about, combating poverty, making it easier for people to have the opportunities they need. To me, that comes from growth of jobs and opportunity.
I remind the member that this is questions and comments, and it's we have to leave time for other members. The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Well, Madam Speaker, I'm going to let a big secret out the bag and just say that I'm deeply fond of the member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan. We share a lot. But I will say, guess what? Bean counters will love guaranteed livable income, because guess where we save the money? You know, snooping around on single moms to find out if they've moved in with their boyfriend in order to cut their benefits takes money. We have a shame-based system of Band-Aid solutions on poverty, and they are expensive. It costs a lot of money. Now, it doesn't cost the money at the federal level the way it costs money at provincial or municipal level, but you count it all up. And when people have done their research, and there's been a lot of research done, guaranteed livable income can replace a lot of very inefficient programs that are expensive. And those people who lose their jobs snooping around and checking up on single moms, well, they'll be all right, because they won't fall below the poverty line, because they'll be guaranteed livable income for all.
L'honorable député de
The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I thank my colleague for her speech. I thank her for speaking in French a bit as well. Her French is great. Her speech is yet another testament to her generosity, how much she cares, and her great analytical mind. At the beginning of her remarks, my colleague talked about an error that must be corrected. She talked about discrimination against seniors. We agree that what has happened with the GIS is absolutely discrimination. I'd like to hear her on another act of discrimination, creating two categories of seniors, and how does she feel we can fix this? The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands. I thank my colleague from the Bloc Québécois, the member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you for your very, very kind words. It is great to see your little colleague. That was lovely. Yes, that is an error that must be reversed. Two categories of seniors have effectively been created. The best way to right these inequalities would be to eliminate poverty. The solution to that is guaranteed annual income. There are other things we could do to protect the health of seniors. There are problems, for instance, with long-term care. Long-term care should not be a for-profit sector. Thank you.
First, Kina Buckley Valley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleague from Saanich Gulf Islands for her speech. I think she'll agree that in addition to fixing this glaring problem facing seniors and the clawback of their GIS benefits, one of the real benefits of this debate has been the opportunity to shed light on the need for a guaranteed basic income for seniors and all people struggling in poverty. And yet it seems like there are still barriers to us coming together and delivering this basic dignity for people. I'm wondering if my colleague can speak to what some of those barriers seem to be, what the beliefs that we hold either subconsciously or otherwise that are holding us back as a society from making the bold move that she referenced, a similar one made in the 1960s. What's holding us back now from making that kind of move and delivering the basic dignity that people deserve?
Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
And I thank my honourable colleague from Skeena Bulkley Valley. Look, I'm older than you guys, and that's not to say that I'm smarter. I just remember stuff. So I remember Reagan and Thatcher and the rise of neoliberalism, and it shifted consciousness. It made a lot of citizens look at government as something alien from them with a handout to pick their pocket. Whereas the narrative that was in our heads post-war, which lasted through the 1950s and the 1960s and into the 1970s, was that collectively we could look after each other. That sense of collective, that sense that government operates like, as I mentioned at the end of my speech, the importance of democracy, that at the very tips of our fingers, we controlled what our government did because it wasn't alien from us. It was us. It was us taking care of each other. The fabric of that has been significantly damaged, but I hope that post-COVID, people will realize that neoliberalism is dead because it wasn't the billionaires. We weren't banging our pots and pans on our balconies for billionaires. We were banging our pots and pans on our balconies for people we knew were underpaid, working hard in healthcare. I hope that we can change the way we think about our job as parliamentarians to include leaps of faith to do what's right.
Member for London West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank the member for her comments, for her speech, a really, really great speech that she made. And I also just want to agree with her that it's time for this bill to pass and to pass it quickly. We've talked about how much all of us really want to support seniors, and many of us have many seniors who sent us in this house to be strong advocates for them. So would the member continue her call as I thank her for making her comments and her great speech on how we can continue to support people? I think this is a step towards getting to that place of continuing to support people. And we know how much COVID has impacted seniors. So I want to thank her and encourage her to continue to make that call that we support this bill to pass and to pass it very quickly. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To the honourable member from London West and to all of us in this House, while I describe how beautiful things were in the late 1970s when all of those, and the 60s and 70s when those changes were made, there was only one woman in the House of Commons, and there weren't any really young women, and there weren't any young racialized women. And I just want to say what a joy it is to see the number of wonderful young women who have taken their place as MPs here. And I thank the honourable member for London West and promise to keep being as difficult as I possibly can be from my older vantage point. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank the member for her speech. The member spoke powerfully about the profound injustice that low-income seniors face. And it made me think about some of the incredible organizations in our region, some that she may be familiar with, the Seniors Entitlement Services, Silver Threads, Service for Seniors, James Bay New Horizons. I sat down with the James Bay Community Project in January, and they're supporting seniors who are facing just immense challenges with isolation, food insecurity. And they spoke about how these challenges are increasing, inequality is increasing. And while these organizations are doing such powerful, incredible work, they are working tirelessly to support seniors. Our government could be tackling this and taking the burden off volunteers and service providers. Scarcity, inequality, poverty, these are policy choices. They are not elements of the human condition. And I'm wondering if the member can speak a little bit more about how pharmacare and a guaranteed livable income would ensure seniors and all community members can live in dignity.
And we give the last 15 seconds to the honourable member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
I thank my honourable colleague from the neighbouring riding of Victoria, where she is doing great work. I would just say this. We have to finish the work that started under Lester B. Pearson and Tommy Douglas and David Lewis, and that includes pharmacare, and it will save Canada money, and it will be better for our economy. And I have seniors in my area. People think that our ridings, Victoria and Sandwich Gulf Islands, are fairly wealthy. I've got seniors living in their cars. I've got people where I pay their electricity bills for them so they don't fall out of their apartment and end up living in a car. We have desperate needs, and C12 will help. Pharmacare is essential. Thank you, Madam Speaker.